outsourcing, which is the transfer of work to an external company, is nothing new. But recently, we've seen an exponential growth in this practice. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about why we're seeing this trend and what are the impacts.
In the Netherlands and in the UK and in different parts of the world, we saw actually a huge amount of businesses are specializing in certain fields. And we also saw that companies are struggling with keeping their knowledge up to speed in all those different areas. So what actually happened is those companies are, let's say, breaking up, or they're trying to seek different kind of knowledge. They want to focus on the core businesses, and they also want to, of course, lower cost. And one of the assets of doing an outsourcing bit is actually trying to cut down on capital ownership. So if you do that from an outsourcing perspective, that can be quite beneficial for your profit and loss.
Leading on this, like, why do you think there was a need for an ISO standard? I mean, why was the committee created?
Well, in an international world, of course, there are a lot of cultures and differences in language and stuff like that. So what you try to do is, we had a lot of troubles with actually creating one common denominator on language and one common denominator on how are we going to do the businesses. And it's also tremendously, let's say, hard to do that business from a time perspective as well, because you have to fly in and stuff like that. So it's quite not so economical to have those discussions over and over again. So hopefully this standard will create more common language, more common framework to have a more easily process on doing an outsourcing. It will still be difficult, but we hope that will be beneficial for the parties in question. Then you see, for instance, that the world is quite being disrupted by companies like Airbnb, or for instance, the taxi business is very disrupted by Uber, for instance. So if you look at the different business models that we have nowadays, they are quite being disturbed by all those new technologies coming in. And those big companies have big trouble in actually specializing and tapping into that knowledge area. So by doing an outsourcing or creating joint ventures with different parties and trying to facilitate those innovations, you can actually try and create a new business model. So this is also one of the elements of the standard, trying to create an adaptive outsourcing arrangement by which you can actually create a more beneficial, let's say, business model for yourself by having more business relations, business-to-business arrangements to create more innovations than you can actually do by your own or by yourself.
So who do you say the standard is for? Is it for the people who are doing the outsourcing or for the people who are actually providing the services?
It's for both parties. So this standard is all about joint decision making, joint delivery of services, joint governance on outsourcing. So this standard is all about collaboration. That's the first. So it's for the delivery persons, it's also for the business persons, but especially actually for the senior management. Before an organization goes through an outsourcing arrangement, I think this standard will help and facilitate to identify the risks that are concerned with outsourcing, and they can actually talk to their own people and try to create a good environment so that the outsourcing deal will not go haywire, but that the outsourcing deal will commence and actually deliver value.
Peter, perhaps we can conclude with just a look ahead. I mean, this trend of outsourcing seems to be here to stay. So what's next for the industry?
Hopefully, because this is an overarching standard, so what we meant by that is it's indifferent from any industry, so it's not IT related or for the packaging industry or for, let's say, energy or healthcare. But we know that there are several detailed outsourcing arrangements and service arrangements in different industries. So the next level from this guideline is actually trying to plug in those different industries and have those languages being, let's say, melted and fused with this standard. So then the overarching management standard will actually be an overarching standard, and then the the more detailed standards are, let's say, an extension on it.